Okay, so in this video I'm going to be ranking Doom, and we're not talking every single Doom because that would go on for millions of years more than likely. So specifically we're looking at 7 different ports, 7 different platforms, ranging from the Panasonic 3DO to the Game Boy Advance. So of course it's the age-old battle, which port was the best. Of course the PC original was the best, but we're specifically looking at console ports, some of which are just absolutely diabolically terrible. So anyways, without further ado, this is my rankings of the Doom ports. Enjoy. Okay, so first up on my list we have got Doom for the 3DO. So this one was released back in 1996, which is quite surprising. I would have thought the 3DO was absolutely dead at that point, but this is personally my worst port of Doom. The frame rate's extremely laggy, and as you can see in the gameplay, there's a tiny little window, so it's not even a full screen. The problem is with this port really is that with a game such as Doom, you're going to need a lot of speed, so you're going to need higher frames per second. This Doom is just far too slow. The music's very good, but you do notice over time that the music does tend to speed up and slow down, so it's almost like the 3DO couldn't manage to pull this game off at all. Okay, so next up we have got Doom for the Sega Saturn. So this one released back in 1997. The only problem I've actually got with this port of Doom is the lagginess of it. So obviously, like I was saying, in the 3DO version of Doom, it's like a game like Doom really does need speed. So when you're turning, you need absolute precision to shoot enemies, that type of thing. Really interesting feature with the Sega Saturn version of Doom is it's got this ambient music in the background. So rather than using traditional music, which you hear in every other Doom port or PC version, the Sega Saturn seems to have an exclusive soundtrack to the first level at least. But apart from that, everything else is fine. It just suffers really badly with frames. So next up we got Doom for the Game Boy Advance. This one released all the way back in 2001. It's not a bad port. The only thing which lets this down is obviously this was designed for a very small screen, so it's overly pixelated. The really interesting thing with the Game Boy Advance version of Doom is the soundtrack in the background. The music in the background is actually from the second mission on it. Apart from that, I do find controls in the Game Boy Advance version very slippery, almost like you're on ice. Apart from that, it seems quite a mediocre version of Doom. Okay, next up we have got the Atari Jaguars version or port of Doom. This one released back in 1994, and it's a real shame there's no music in the background of this. Obviously, the whole theme, the music for Doom really rocks you on that MIDI sound. I think it's a big part of Doom, the original OG Doom anyway. So frames per second are great in this game. It really runs very smoothly. Like I say, the only issue with this version of Doom is the lack of music. Apart from that, I think I would have rated this one higher. But yeah, it's a very, very good port of Doom, and it's definitely worth checking out. Okay, next up on the list we have got Doom for the Super Nintendo or Super Famicom. It makes use of Super FX, which is the GSU2 chip, and it's a very nice port for a 16-bit version of this. I was actually blown away by the music. I thought I actually got the wrong version of this, some type of MSU version of Doom for the Super Nintendo, but no, this is how it sounded like originally. Really good sounds in game. The frames per second in it is really fluid as well. Everything really carries itself really well. I think I've rated this one so highly because of the fact it's a 16-bit console pulling this off so quickly. Everything's very fast pacing. Like I say, cherry on cake is actually the music. It sounds so well. Next up on the list we have got Doom for the Sega 32X. This one released back in 1994, and I've rated this one pretty highly because, as you can hear in the gameplay, it's got music, it's got sound effects, it's very fluid gameplay, there's not really much lag in it. The only letdown of this port of Doom is, as you can see in the gameplay, it's not entirely a full screen, but having said that, the gameplay screen is actually better than something like the 3DO. If it wasn't for the smaller screen on this, I'd probably rate it actually higher. Yeah, the music isn't perfect like the Super Nintendo version, but it's still a very faithful console port. Okay, so in first place, I have ranked Doom on the OG PlayStation. This one came out in 1995, and it plays so well. It's not got traditional music in the background, but just like the Sega Saturn, it's got its own ambient music in the background, really sinister sounding. It moves really well, and it's a very responsive game. So other ports of this game, some versions felt like you're walking on ice. other versions which are far too laggy, and I think this version of Doom has perfection in many ways. So yeah, it's not perfect, but from my experience of playing the Doom games over the years, I truly think this is the best version of it, console-wise anyways. So anyways, let me know in the comments section what you think of my picks, and what was your favourite version of Doom.